Okay, so picture this. Two of the absolute greatest minds of the 20th century are taking a daily walk. One of them is Albert Einstein, the guy who literally wrote the rules for the universe. And the other? That's Kurt Gödel, the logician who found a loophole in those very same rules. Now, their walks through Princeton weren't just some casual stroll. No, they were a journey to the absolute edge of reality, one that would challenge our understanding of the most fundamental thing any of us ever experience: time itself. I mean, just listen to this quote from their colleague, Oscar Morgenstern. It's incredible. Einstein, the most famous scientist on the entire planet, said he came to work for the privilege of walking home with Gödel. He wasn't just being nice. He saw something in Gödel's way of thinking that was so important and, as it turns out, deeply unsettling.
So you gotta wonder, right? What on earth could these two possibly have talked about every single day? Well, it turns out they were debating the very fabric of the universe, and specifically whether Einstein's own beautiful theory of relativity might actually contain the seeds of a massive paradox: the possibility of traveling into your own past.
To really get what was going on in their conversations, you have to understand how these two men thought. On one side, you've got Einstein. He's the physicist of reality, totally focused on describing the universe exactly as it is. But on the other side, you have Gödel, the logician of paradox. He was obsessed with what is logically possible, no matter how bizarre it might seem. One guy wrote the rule book, and the other stress-tested it for any possible contradiction he could find. All right, so before we get to the wild loophole, we need to understand the rules. So let's do a quick refresher on the foundation that Gödel was about to challenge: Einstein's theory of general relativity. The core of this whole theory is a set of super dense equations called, you guessed it, the Einstein field equations. To put it simply, they're basically the mathematical machine that describes the relationship between all the stuff in the universe, planets, stars, energy, and the actual shape and fabric of space-time itself. Yeah, I know, that looks complicated, and believe me, it is. But you don't need a PhD to get the beautiful central idea behind it all. Think of it like an instruction manual for the cosmos. And this really is the best way to think about it. It's like a cosmic dance. A huge object, like our sun, creates a big curve or a dent in space-time. And planets like Earth, they're not being pulled by some mysterious force. They're just following the straightest possible path along that curve. That, my friends, is gravity. So Einstein builds this absolutely elegant, beautiful structure. But Gödel, well, Gödel's going to be Gödel. He takes this perfect rulebook and finds a page that Einstein never, ever intended to write, a logical consequence that turns everything completely on its head. And get this, in 1949, right when they were taking these daily walks, Gödel goes and publishes his solution. He wasn't proposing some new theory. Nope. He found a whole new kind of universe that was perfectly allowed by Einstein's existing equations. A universe with a very, very strange property. His whole discovery hinged on a really simple but totally reality-bending question. We know matter curves space-time, but what if the entire universe, all the matter and energy in it, had an overall rotation? What if the whole thing was spinning? A spinning universe, Gödel showed, could create something called a closed time-like curve, or a CTC, and the definition is everything here. A CTC is a path through space-time that loops. If you could travel along one, you would eventually arrive at the exact same point in space and time where you started. It is, quite literally, a time machine. Full stop. Okay, so how on earth does that even work? Let's use an analogy, because this gets a little weird. In physics, we talk about light cones, all the possible future paths from a single point. So imagine these light cones as a giant field of wheat, with every stalk pointing straight up towards the future. That's normal space-time. Now you add gravity, and massive objects start to tilt those stalks. Then you add Gödel's universal rotation, and the stalks get tilted so severely that they tip right over. So now, a spaceship that is always moving forward from its own perspective can actually follow a path that globally loops back on itself. Mind-bending, right? And this is the absolute kicker. Gödel hadn't broken general relativity. He had used it. He demonstrated with pure, hard math that a universe with time travel wasn't just science fiction. It was a completely logical possibility hiding inside the very laws his friend had discovered. Now, as you can imagine, this conclusion was, let's just say, deeply disturbing for physicists. It wasn't just a clever puzzle. It seemed to break the universe by allowing for paradoxes. The idea that cause and effect could just get all scrambled up threatened the entire foundation of science. This led to a really powerful counterargument, an idea that a guy named Stephen Hawking would champion decades later, that the universe must have some kind of built-in safety mechanism. Here's why this is such a massive problem. It opens the door to the famous grandfather paradox. If you can go back in time and prevent your own birth, then you could never have existed to go back in the first place. This isn't just a fun riddle, it's a fundamental breakdown of causality, the rule that effects have to follow their causes. So to solve this, Hawking came up with the chronology protection conjecture. Now, it's not a proven law, okay? It's more of a powerful idea that there must be some yet unknown physical principle that makes building a time machine impossible, thereby protecting the timeline from all these messy paradoxes. And what would this cosmic protection agency even look like? Well, the leading idea is a kind of violent feedback loop. The theory goes that as you approach the point where a time loop could form, quantum energy fluctuations would just pile up, becoming infinitely dense, and creating a wall of energy that would just, poof, destroy your machine or the wormhole itself at that critical moment. So, where does all this leave us today? Well, this debate is far from over, not even close. The fundamental questions that were raised during those walks in Princeton are still at the very heart of modern physics. That conversation is still very much alive. You can pretty much break down the modern viewpoints into three main camps. First, you've got Gödel's original idea. Time travel is logically possible if the universe has just the right shape. Second, Hawking's conjecture. Nope, some new law of physics has to step in and forbid it. And third, you have more recent theories that try to build causality into the universe right from the very start. For example, some of these modern theories try to construct the universe from the ground up, almost like using digital pixels to create an image on a screen. And in these models, the rule that a cause must always come before its effect is baked in from the very beginning. It's a fundamental pixel of reality, making time loops impossible by design. But even if time travel is forbidden, Gödel's work left us with an even deeper, more personal puzzle. His real target might not have been time travel, but time itself. As this quote suggests, maybe Gödel's ultimate point was that our very experience of time's arrow, that relentless flow from past to present to future, isn't a fundamental property of the universe. Maybe it's just a property of our perception, a story our consciousness tells itself to make sense of a timeless reality. And this brings us right back to the heart of those walks in Princeton, and to the profound, unsettling question the logician of paradox posed to the physicist of reality. Is the forward flow of time a fundamental truth of the cosmos, or is it nothing more than a stubborn personal illusion constructed entirely within our own minds?